Hello everybody and welcome back to Bring Your Own Popcorn, and welcome to day number 4 of the 12 Days of Christmas, where I watch and review a Christmas film that I have never seen before. And in today's episode I will be watching and reviewing Christmas with the Kranks. So as I said in the last video, I like to keep this series quite varied on the quality of the films that I'm watching. I like to watch some that are critically acclaimed and some that are critically panned. And this one might be one of the most critically panned Christmas films I've seen in a while, with its whopping 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I know very little about this Christmas film. It looks pretty generic, just your typical kind of American suburb Christmas film. But yeah, I know literally nothing about it. I know Tim Allen's in it, I know Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and Dan Aykroyd as well, so a great cast. But in terms of the plot, I know literally nothing. So without further ado, let's crack on and watch Christmas with the Kranks. Okay, so here's Christmas with the Kranks. Let's read the little synopsis. Tim Allen and Jamie Lee Curtis, as I just said, cause uproar in their Christmas crazy suburb when they give the festivities a miss. A ding-dong comedy based on a John Grisham story. Number one, I don't think I've ever heard a film being called a ding-dong comedy before, and I don't know who John Grisham is. And this 2-star rating is worrying me a little bit, because I feel like on Sky Cinema, the audiences are quite generous with the star ratings that they give some film. And when a film has got a bad star rating, it usually means it's pretty bad. So yeah, I'm nervous for this one, but here we go. Let's watch Christmas with the Kranks.
Tim Allen.
Your face. It's like it's frozen.
I got a Botox injection today.
Luther.
And Jamie Lee Curtis. Christmas with the Kranks.
What are you doing, Luther? Whoa! Easy!
So I just got done watching Christmas with the Kranks, and do you know what? Even though this film has got 5% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is an abysmal score, I thought it was actually a pretty decent film. Look, it didn't do anything revolutionary or anything particularly new or anything particularly creative. It was fairly generic, but for a film to just throw on during the Christmas period and have a good time with, I think this film does that. I thought that it was a harmless, fun little Christmas film. In terms of story, this film really splits into 2 halves for me. I thought the first half wasn't all that great. Whilst the characters seemed fun and were quirky enough, the plot just didn't interest me at all. I thought it was quite bland and actually quite boring. Hardly any of the jokes were landing for me in the first half as well, which made the experience even worse. The full first half of the film is basically the same joke, repeated about 50 times, and whilst it is repeated in different ways, it becomes very old very fast. It is basically the joke. These characters are going away for the holidays and everyone in the community is appalled because they're normally really into Christmas, throw a big party and everything. And the full first half of the film is basically loads of characters coming up to them going, "You're going away for Christmas? You're going away for Christmas? How can you do that?" It is basically that repeated and repeated and repeated and repeated. And it becomes old really fast. The first few times that it does the joke, it is quite funny. The 50th, 60th, 70th time that it does the joke, it is no longer funny. It is so annoying. Don't get me wrong, I don't think the first half was terrible. I just don't think it was incredibly interesting. It was pretty generic and just a bit boring, a bit dull. However, randomly at about the halfway point in the film, when the daughter announces that she's coming home for Christmas, the film randomly turns in to a fun Christmas film. It just randomly comes alive. Whilst it was still pretty unoriginal, the script just seemed to start bursting with life all of a sudden. The jokes started being funny, the characters became more interesting, the story was just a bit more enthralling. It's like the writers finally knew how to write. There was some really wonderful humour in the second half of this film. Some lovely slapstick humour, which I love to see in Christmas films. You get it in Home Alone, you get it in Christmas Vacation. There's some really, really wonderful slapstick here. And it also has a really beautiful ending, which really made me come round to the film. I was surprised to see that it was Chris Columbus that was attached to writing this script, and whilst at the start you don't really see his style, you think this is a bit bland for Columbus, by the end you can totally see his style bursting through the screen. Some of the jokes in the latter half of the movie unashamedly had me laughing out loud. Especially from this fun little cop duo in the movie, they were absolutely hilarious. There was also this beautiful sense of community, which I wasn't expecting the film to do, because in the first half of the movie, the neighbours are seen kind of as the villains. And then in the second half, they randomly become this nice, well-rounded, friendly community. And I love that this film tackled that very well. You just got this nice feeling of community. You just got this nice feeling that there's friends all around you. And it isn't really something that films tackle anymore. And I like that this film did tackle that. In terms of direction, I do think the direction was fairly generic. However, it did have its standout moments. When the film is capturing just this American suburb on Christmas Eve with all the decorations and the lights shining brightly, I thought that the film captured that really well. Most of the shots capturing this were really nice looking. However, when it's just capturing day-to-day life, it's not the best. The direction for the most part feels really cheap. It feels more like sitcom style direction, not a direction from a $60 million film. Similar to the script, I thought the direction really came alive in the second half of the movie. And I thought the final shot of the film was by far the most beautiful shot of the movie. And it really captured the magic of Christmas very, very well. There were some crappy effects throughout the movie as well. Practical and CGI, including this Botoxed Tim Allen scene, which I showed in the little trailer bit just before this, which looks genuinely awful. But overall, in terms of direction, whilst I do think it was fairly generic, there were some really, really beautiful shots in the movie. So I do think the direction was alright. Performance-wise, I do think a lot of the performances were really good here. However, I don't think the lead, that being Tim Allen, was particularly good. He's trying far too hard to give a similar performance to Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation, and whenever he does that stuff, it just falls flat on its face for me. Don't get me wrong, I do think Tim Allen is a decently funny guy, just it doesn't feel like the most original performance to me. However, towards the end of the film, I do think that Tim Allen shined in the more emotional scenes. Jamie Lee Curtis is truly great here, and she honestly gives the best performance of the movie for me. And it's always an absolute joy to see Dan Aykroyd and everything, and I think he plays a really good part here. The whole supporting cast is great too, especially Eric Persullivan, who you probably know from Malcolm in the Middle. He's a great little kid actor. He's really good, really charming, really funny here. And especially the feckless and hilarious cop duo played by Cheech Marin and Jake Busey. They were absolutely hilarious. Overall, whilst I'll be the first to admit that objectively this isn't a good movie, this is the exact type of film that I love to just throw on during the Christmas period. It's totally harmless in its intent and packs some really good laughs and emotional beats. It's a shame that I don't think the first half of the film packs the same punch that the second half did, or the score would be a lot higher for me. However, Christmas with the Kranks still gets my recommendation, and I would like to give it a 6 out of 10. It is definitely not the 5% that Rotten Tomatoes would have you believe it is. But that's just my opinion. Please put down in the comments below what you think of Christmas with the Kranks. Do you like it? Do you hate it? I love to read all your comments and I try to respond to every single one of them. Please join me back here tomorrow at 6 PM where I'll be watching and reviewing The Holiday. Thank you everyone for watching. Please remember to like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, all that jazz. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.